What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dad Talk. Today, it is Monday. We're going to do some Dad Talk. I appreciate you being here. It's been a minute since we've been able to do a show. There's been a lot going on with Dad Talk recently, man. Lots of tragic events, some exciting opportunities that are coming up, and I'm going to make sure to tell you all about them in this broadcast. Before we get started, I got to do the cliche thing, not because we want to be a big channel on YouTube or Facebook, but because we want to get the message out that we're going to be talking about today, and not enough people are doing it. We're going to talk about the trials that men go through. We're going to talk about the family courts, what fathers have to face. And a lot of people are scared to do it. We're not. Dad. I just offended 1 million people just then. It was that quick. You might think I'm crazy, but again, we're going to talk a little bit about it. So if you're watching this right now and you're on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and like, comment down below. The more you do that, the more people it goes out to. If you're watching this on Facebook, please make sure as well to like it. And do me a favor, share this broadcast, because we're going to talk about some things that we see behind the scenes that we've seen going across the country, and really want to give you the true perspective on it. Today's episode is going to be talking about society is not sympathetic to men's issues. What goes on? Well, you know, there's a lot more media here recently that's been talking about the fatherless issue, and I have a problem with that. You might think, why would you have a problem with that? Guys, every time I finally see a broadcast and people just start messaging it to me, man, Tucker Carlson or somebody like that was talking about the fatherless issue. And look, man, anybody that actually finally puts a spotlight on these issues, I'm very appreciative. But there's one thing that we need to address, and I want to make sure that I do this, and I'm going to be as honest as I can with you. Every time you talk about the fatherless issue and you do not address what's going on in the family courts, you don't address what's going on with CPS, you don't address what is causing the fatherless issue, you allow there to be assumptions about why there is a fatherless crisis. And what does that do? It goes back to the deadbeat dad narrative. We've got this fatherless crisis that's causing all these bad consequences. So why is it going on? If you do not tell everybody why dads are not in the home, why they're not being allowed, you feed into that narrative. In many ways, it's a double-edged sword, because it makes the problem even worse. You cannot be afraid to address these issues where they need to be addressed. If you don't, then all you're doing is causing more strife for every single one of us that are out here doing what we're doing right now. So I would beg you, please look into it. If you want to address the issue, you need to make sure that you're covering everything, not just the consequences from it. You need to address why that dad is going through what he's going through. All right. So we're going to get back into this. I've talked to, whether people know it or not, man, when we went across the country and we're doing these events, talking to the media, I've talked to several different media producers. I've talked to several, TV station guys, and I asked them, why are you not addressing these issues? And I'm going to tell you what's told to me every single time. One, because it's not a sexy issue and that people are not sympathetic to it. And if they do talk about dads, it has to be in some way that kind of just taints it. It was something that he did wrong. And even if you get out there and tell a father's story, it's got to be because he should have chose better. He really should have, done the right thing. Man, dude, I watched a movie. I'm not going to say the name of it, but I was very disgruntled by it. I know that people meant everything good by it, but in this particular movie, it was like a documentary. It was very big. They're talking about a father that was raising his kids, and he struggled with alcoholism. Okay. And in that, he made many mistakes along the way, but he stayed by his kids. And they talk about the problems that these kids had by growing up with this, alcoholic father. Now, later on in this same thing, they talk about this mother who didn't have the resources or the wherewithal to raise her child. And when it was a baby, she went and left it on somebody's doorstep. Okay. And just took off. And how amazing of a mother she was, because she knew that she didn't have what it took to raise this child. So she went and put it somewhere that it was. So we're going to condemn this guy that had his struggles, that made his mistakes, but he stayed there. But we're going to praise at the same time somebody that just completely abandoned a child. There are so many double standards when it comes to this. And like I said, man, every time I see this fatherless issue getting talked about and they just skip around the family courts, it makes you wonder why, right? Um, they say that it's not a sexy issue and that people won't listen to it. I disagree. The Johnny Depp issue was one of the biggest things out there, and people will say, well, that was because he was Johnny Depp, right? I think there was some truth to that. But I also think the other part of that discussion was I saw nonstop down in the comments, men that were reaching out or commenting down there saying, I am Johnny Depp. I was with Amber Heard. I know what that was like. And for the first time, these men felt like they were getting some type of justification by watching this case go down. And it was one of the biggest stories that was talked about. So for any of these networks or people that think that this issue right here, it's so taboo, it's not sexy, so nobody will tune into it, I beg to differ. I think too many people are cowards and don't want to address it the way it needs to be addressed. We go out to the events, we talk about politics, we talk about the nuclear family, we talk about the critical race theory, all these other BS talking points, man. Like there's validity in that needing to be talked about. But again, they always skip over the main issue. Why? Because the industry, so many people are attached to the money that's being made through that, between the government grants, between the Title 4D, between everything that's going on. So, and how do we as a movement finally get people to listen? Right. One thing that I've always seen in my experience, if you watch, anytime I finally get on a media interview and somebody wants to cover this, I always talk about stories. It's going to be about a John Master, like David Henderson, because people hear those stories and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. What's the first thing that happens? Because that narrative has been passed with that blank statement of not addressing what's causing it. The first thing that people have to do is, well, what did dad do wrong? He had to be a horrible person, right? Nobody even realizes how bad this can get. And what happens is the people that do get out here and talk about it, especially me, okay, they think there's just got to be a reason, and it discredits these dad's stories even more. At the same time, when you tell these stories, people get interested in what you have to say, and they'll start asking questions. I want to give a little knowledge, and I hope this helps people, because we need more and more advocates getting out there and speaking about it. But I've went to several different capitals and rallies with these people, and I hear them talk to these legislators. I hear them talk to the media, and kind of just step back and observe. And people want to jump straight into child support or Title 4D or CPS, and they've got all this information. I'm finally being heard. So what ends up happening? All these emotions that they got and anger from this happening, they just throw it up all over them. And what you get is a person that's looking at you, they're nodding their head, but they're not comprehending it. There are so many different things that goes on with this system that nobody can sit there and comprehend that right away. So they'll get through the conversation and they'll go throughout their day. However, when you tell these stories, guys, like, the John Mass, David Henderson, Chad Reed, people get really upset. And then, like I said, they'll start asking you the questions. The more that we can tell this through stories, you have to be careful as well, because there could always be that person that tells you that, they got this horrible story, it goes viral, and then you find out it was the opposite. I mean, there's a story going on right now that from the very beginning, I was just like, you got to be careful with it. But I think that is a good strategy that we need to start using a little bit more. One thing that I would like to do, I feel like sometimes I'm not making as much content. And guys, that's because I don't feel like there's much I can talk about that we haven't already. We talk about a lot of the same things every time we come on here, but there is new people that are finding out about this for the first time. So if some of this seems repetitive, please just remember, we're trying to completely spread the awareness about what's going on. But sometimes, again, it can seem a little repetitive. But if we can get out there and start giving these stories, man, over the past couple of weeks, I went out to Texas to cover the story with David. If you only knew how draining this can be sometimes. I'm sitting here with a father that is fighting to see his son that is dying of cancer. You know, we spent like 4 days out there. I want to say thank you to the Country Network. They donated their studios for us to start a documentary on David. I got to go back later on this month and finish that up. It's going to be a huge undertaking, but that was amazing for them to do that. They heard this story and said, man, this needs to be told. You know, here is our facility, and donated guys and everything to come in there and help us. And I think that was so awesome. But I remember the day before we were shooting that documentary, I went home on Saturday. I flew home from Dallas. I almost missed my plane. And I'm thinking back, you start second guessing yourself, and maybe I should have missed my plane. Maybe that was a sign. But I flew back from Dallas, Texas to Georgia. And right as I'm opening my door, I get a call from David's girlfriend telling me that Corbin had passed away. The anger, the absolute anger that came from that, knowing the fight that had been gave for a father wanting to see his son in his final days. Now, the upside to that is when Corbin passed, David was there with him. But all the other details, man, I mean, I had to go into the newspaper and see, you know, he wasn't even listed as a father. And today is his funeral service. And there's going to be 2 separate funeral services for the 2 separate families. And guys, that is just how absolutely nasty this thing can get. I don't know if you saw the post I made last night, but I'd ask you to please go reread it. It was a little blog. I talked about, you know, how us as parents, we second guess everything that we do. Am I doing my best? Is there something I could be doing more? Is there something I could be doing less? And I don't care whether you're divorced or you're still married, or maybe you're just in a relationship and you got kids. That is something that you're going to experience. But when you bring a family law battle into this, a child custody battle, it gets that much worse, because you take these 2 people that once loved each other, you put them in this room with strangers who wants to hear how bad that other parent is. They don't want to hear any compliments. You're not there to talk about how good of a person they are. Like, what do you got in the past? Where are they imperfect? Okay. And let's bring out the dirt. And then you take these 2 people and you make them hate each other even more. These 2 people they're having conflict. And what happens, these 2 people still have to communicate to do what's in the best interest for the child. But the littlest things, where it could be doctor's appointments, what the kid's going to wear, their school, all this just becomes a battlefield. It's something that should be like a 20 to 30 second phone call or text message ends up becoming trash, just getting thrown back and forth. And whether you want it to or not, there is something about that. There's residual effects that come on you that make you second guess yourself even more. And then the gaslighting, that's what it was meant to do, is to make you question your whole reality. And then you got parents that are second guessing themselves. And guess what? Kids see that. Kids see that. And kids need a dad that is confident in who he is. And so you got a dad that's second guessing himself because of this family law battle and what it's brought about to him. You make unconfident kids. And then the other side of it, kids need discipline. Okay. Then you got 2 different people who completely discipline different. And when the other parent does something they don't like, they complain about it in front of the child. What does it do? It oversteps the other parent's authority and takes away all the respect that the child had for that parent. Going back, all of this that we're talking about right now, you go to talk to legislation and you go to talk to people about these issues and how we can solve it. And it really is a moot point. Quite frankly, it pisses me off, man. And, one of the hardest things to do is to come on here on this show and talk to you guys and try to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense. We try our best. And like I said, we do the best we can with what we have, but it is just so sad that so many people are scared. Again, it's not a sexy issue. I didn't know that the news was supposed to be sexy. I thought we were supposed to report on what's going on. And the reason I get so mad with media and journalists sometimes is they have a power to help heal this. But much like politics and everything else that goes on nowadays, We're going to put in the wedge issues just like we do, with our exes. And then it's just going to get more and more and more divisive. Right now, guys, you cannot be afraid to speak up for what you believe. You cannot be afraid to stand up to this, because this is pure evil. It's not just a war with your ex that you're fighting. There is a stigma against you. And for everybody that comes in here and tries to say, well, this is happening to moms too. Excuse me, ma'am. This is dad talk. Okay. You're welcome here too. And I've never discredited that. But the fact that people get upset when we say the word father, or we say dad, or because dad's in our name, that's a part of the problem. And then you got the other ones over there that want to play the PC angle. You can't talk about dads, okay? The second they hear you talking about dads, the second they hear you talking about child support, the second they hear you talking about family court or any of those issues, they're not going to get behind it, man. You gotta stay neutral. BS. Why aren't the courts staying neutral? Why isn't society staying neutral? Why don't they mention what's going on with this? Guys, don't be neutral. Call out the bullcrap. And that's what we've got to start doing. I'm not afraid to do it. I'm like up to here with it, right? I really am. You can't be scared. To get back on this, it's not going to be a long episode today, but I got a lot to update you guys on. I just got a call a little over an hour ago telling me that we've been invited to Washington, D.C. to be a part of a roundtable discussion on fatherlessness. One of the things that I really want to bring up is when you talk about fatherlessness and you don't mention what's causing it, that you're doing a disservice to every dad out there that's fighting. You are feeding that $1 billion industry that is not there to heal families. They are there to break it up, because that's how they profit. And I will be glad to do that, to be able to have a seat at the table to do that. I'm gladly going to go up there and represent you guys. Later on this month, I've tried to stay off the road a little bit this year, because man, last year we was tearing it up. But I'm leaving on the 31st, and through the 4th, I'll be helping on that documentary. We're going to try to finish that up, and through the 4th through the 7th, we've been invited back to CPAC. And crazy thing is, legislators that are hearing about us at these shows are reaching out to me, guys, that are going through the same thing. In politics, if you got one of the guys that really wants to do the right thing, and they've been through these issues, it becomes that much worse. They bring their family law battle into the politics to say, hey, look, this guy that got allegations, all that, it was true. Okay, you don't need him in office. And they have so much money and connections with the media to help that little smear campaign get out there. And the ones that are trying to get into office to fight for you, man, they get it pretty bad. And you need to know about those guys, because we need to be supporting them when they're getting supported by the very ones that try to hold us down. I think it's very important that we are there to support and be a backbone for these guys. But at the same time, I mean, the word is getting out in a way that I've never seen it before. I'm very excited to see what the future is going to hold with these issues. As much as sometimes when I talk about this and everything, and it seems frustrated and like nothing's happening, there is a lot happening. More people are cognizant of it than they ever have been. So we'll be heading into CPAC 4th through the 7th, and then I'm going to leave from there and go join John Mass' family. We're going to be doing a trip around Idaho, visiting custody exchange centers and presenting them the new statistics that we had with that survey. I'm going to tell you guys, I don't know if you've seen some of the statistics. We polled 1,000 men, okay, that have been through divorce and child custody issues. We had nothing to do with who was selected or anything. That was completely third party. The only thing that we said is make sure that they were men that had been through family court and that they were divorced. 1 in 5 men say that they feel threatened for their life at custody exchanges. 1 in 5. The amount of men, I think out of 3, have faced false allegations. 90% of men say they felt completely treated unfairly compared to mothers inside of the family court system. I'm actually surprised by that one. I thought it would be 100, but it's kind of reminiscent of what we see in the statistics. About 90% of the time, men end up without custody in family court. So I guess that one's kind of right on. But there's a lot of these statistics. The one that really bothers me is the amount of men that doesn't know that there are any custody exchange centers out there. There is over 800 of them in this nation alone. I think it was around 60% of men said they had no idea that something existed like that. So we've got these custody exchange centers that are supposed to be providing a solution to a problem, and people don't even know about them. But the other side of that was, if you knew they were funded by VAWA, or they were getting this funding that kind of is attached to that, would you feel safe using it? And I'm guessing that you can guess what the outcome of that was. Most of these men do not feel safe. A lot of them feel threatened. And if there is these billions and billions of dollars that is supposed to be providing this resource that most people have no idea about, we've got a problem. So we're wanting to start off in Idaho, because that's where John's fight went down, and see what we can do there, guys. And please, I can't ask you enough. John Mass Foundation on Facebook, that family is not going anywhere. They are not sitting down. For anybody that followed John Mass case, I think it's 3 times that the court case has been pushed back. We were set to go in May. We were set to go in July. Now it's November. And unfortunately, a lot of times they can just keep pushing it back. And so here's this family that the only way they feel that they can get justice is to see this court case go down. And 2 years delayed. That's our justice system for you. I guarantee if this was the other way around, you'd be hearing about results a lot quicker. And so that ticks me off. Let me get back on what I was going to talk about. You know, the John Mass Foundation, they're doing these surveys, guys, that I've never seen done before. That family is 100% committed to the cause. So if you can get over there and follow them on Facebook, for any of you that can contribute, they are a 501c3. All donations are tax deductible. It's going to take money to go and get these results, but to know that somebody actually went out there and did a poll that for once didn't stray from the issue. You know, and I've talked to several people about that when, you know, saying that, well, have we ever had any polls done on how many of these men feel threatened at these custody exchanges? How many of these men would not want to use these services if they know it had that feminist agenda funding coming from it? How many of these men feel like they were treated unequal? I mean, and when people hear that you want to do something like that, why would you do that? You know, you don't have to say, man. I mean, it happens to everybody. I was like, yes, we do. I want to hear from these guys what they are going through. Why can't the world stop for 1 second and listen to these dads? It's mind-boggling, man. It's mind-boggling. And I want to say this, you know, started like kind of around the 70s. If you watch it, I've been on my Andy Griffith kick here lately. I don't know if you guys seen some of the reels that we posted. Man, how wholesome and valued that a show like that, a strong father in there that was trying to, you know, teach his son these lessons. Where is that now? It's just not there. Where is anything in modern entertainment or in society that shows the goodness of what fathers bring to the table? There's not. And there's so many things that, again, I think people dodge. You got these women nowadays being told that they don't need a man. They can do everything that a man can do. And they do, you know, as single moms. They play the role of mom and dad, and you wonder why kids don't know what they are. You don't think that plays into it? Why are kids confused nowadays? They question everything about their identities and everything about their self when they see one person trying to play both roles. Now, don't get me wrong, I was a single father, but I do know I did the best that I could. Did my girls need, you know, a female there? There is so much that they get from mom and dad. You can do your best. And yes, you can raise your children good as a single parent. But when you got so much of this going on and you're not seeing any good influences of men, and you've made them out to be deadbeats, nobody wants to trust dad anymore. The sad thing is, an allegation could be made against a man that's doing everything that he possibly can for his family. Just an allegation, no proof, and it can completely ruin his whole life. That's where we've laid it, man. And so people can say the only reason that got big is because it was Johnny Depp. He went through 4 years of hell because people believed her until it got on that stand. The time for silence is gone. I don't know that there ever was a time to be silent, but we need to speak up now more than we ever have, guys. Don't be afraid to say anything with men or fathers. Strategy, I was told early on. Hold up, can I have some coffee? It's a little early. It won't be when this plays tonight. Yes, this is pre-recorded. I'll probably be joining you down there in the comments. Anyway, one of the things I was told early on as a strategy is when talking to legislation, when talking to people, talking about equal shared parenting, don't do it in a way that makes it look like it's got anything to do with men, but in a way that will look at the trials that you're putting mom through. You're telling her that she's got to have, the primary custody. She's got to find a babysitter. She's got to do all of this on her own. And if she had dad there, it would make her job that much easier. That's how we're supposed to approach this problem with what's going on with fathers. That's how we're supposed to address this bias. No, man. I say the same thing I want to talk about with the media with fatherlessness. Every time you try a little strategy like that and you do it just because you think being PC is going to get us somewhere, you are doing a disservice to men and fathers everywhere. You should be able to be proud to be who you are. I hope you are proud of being dad. I hope you are proud to be a man. I know you're not proud of the consequences that comes from being a man and a father going through this system. But we've got to get it out there, man. I've got some ideas, and I'm hoping that they go over. But the other thing is, guys, like we can only do with what we got. I would like to ask you, if you see down at the bottom of the screen, there's going to be over 2 weeks that we're going to be gone later on this month and next month. Patreon.com/dadtalktoday is where you can help us and support our travels and what we do. It's been very hard this year. Last year, because of COVID, in the weirdest way, man, COVID helped this movement more than anything that's ever happened, because most flights were like $50 to $100 round trip. Hotels were cheap. And then coming this year, once everything went back to normal, the same ticket that was $50 last year is like $600 to $700 now. And, with society not being sympathetic to men's issues, there's no funding. And that is an unpopular conversation, but people need to understand this. Most of these men that are going through family court, that are having to pay this child support, this alimony, or attorneys, or filing fees, experts, they are at work. And most of them, after all of that's been done, are tapped. They do not have it. Now, on the other side, when you're talking about VAWA and these other organizations, billions in dollars of funding since 1994. I think it just got reauthorized, from my understanding, inside of a $1.5 trillion spending bill, which Caden's Law is going to be attached to. If you're not paying attention to Caden's Law, man, you really need to see it, guys, because that is one of the most disastrous things. None of the media outlets are reporting on it, but it could be the next law that's going to come through here and affect you. It's going to affect your kids, and the whole future of family court is going to be 10 times worse. So there's the other side of you needing to lift your voices and us needing to organize, because we need to get to the places where we need to be in order to say, hey, this is not good. Let me tell you why. I understand that this is a situation where a child lost their life and the dad was the perpetrator. But here's the other side of this story where mom was the perpetrator. The child got killed. He did everything he could in family court and he lost. They need to hear the other side. Unfortunately, I don't know if you saw it. Ron DeSantis vetoed the alimony and shared parenting bill there in Florida. Up until that time, I usually keep my politics to myself, but I thought he was the greatest governor in the United States of America. So I've had a really hard time of accepting the fact that that would get vetoed, just like the former governor, Rick Scott, vetoed it twice after it went through the House and the Senate. Um, there's other sides of that situation, guys. I don't know how many of our guys, I don't even know if one actually got to go and sit down with him and say, Governor, this is what we're trying to address. So when we're not there, guess what happens? You got the bar there. You got the lobbyists and everybody else that wants to keep it that way there. And that's the only information being fed. A lot of that's got to do with funding. A lot of it's got to do with people don't know how to strategize. I get some flack sometimes for not taking more people with me to the capitals, but I do that for a reason. You have got emotionally charged men that feel like they are hopeless. Nobody's listening to them. A lot of them have been fighting it for years, and there's been no relief. So they are ready to just snap at any minute. And that's the last person that you want to have talk to somebody like that, because the narrative already is you're a deadbeat dad that don't want to pay child support. You're angry. They're an angry man that does not need to be in their kid's life. And it couldn't be further from the truth. But we need our people here in those people's ears. And right now, when we're not there, it's not just going unnoticed. The other side is there feeding the narrative that has got us where we are currently. We've got to organize better than this, guys. We've got to organize better than this. I see all the different organizations. They will trash talk each other. There is stuff that will go on. It is just absolutely ridiculous. I try to stay away from it, but it's happening. And it's like you've got a well-funded, well-organized opposition over here. Could you imagine having to go like toe-to-toe with these guys like in the legislation and with what we've got, present our case? We've got to do better than that. And I think we can do it. But the more support we get, the more that we can do. I'm grateful for the opportunities that are coming in, but we need a lot more. Until then, until we can get what is needed in order to be able to push this forward, you at least got to start speaking. Guys, the time for PC and that cancel culture is over. Your voice is needed. I need every single one of you here. We have a father who just lost a son to cancer that was fighting and getting 2 hours a day. Fifth day wasn't getting to see him at all. We have dads that are getting killed at custody exchanges. We've got kids that have been killed. I mean, last year I had the story of the little girl whose mom killed her and her sister. But yet Caden's law is a focus right now, and they want to pass I'm going to tell you like it is. It is a gender bias bill. People tell us not to make it about gender when bills that are gender biased are about to hit us full steam ahead. How do you expect to organize and get solutions towards a problem when you're scared of the problem? I'm not scared. I wish I knew more things that can be done, but we'll do what we can. But you're never going to be able to fix a problem if you're afraid to say what the problem is. That's one of the problems with addicts, man. One of the reasons they can't clean up is they are in denial. I don't have a problem. Well, us guys here, it's not just us. It's not a bias issue. It's not any of that. That is a part of the problem. You're feeding it. You're throwing fuel on that fire. Get out there. Don't be afraid. We need you. We need you, man. And I'm glad to be here on it. You know what? There's something about being the underdog. But man, when David hit Goliath with that little slingshot, that giant went crumbling down. I want to feel the earth shake when that giant comes crumbling down. This thing known as family law. This industry that for years has made it about profit over families. Even they are afraid to address it. We know that they are afraid to address it. But we cannot back up in fear. These are the times, man. The more that you speak out on it, the harder it's going to get. Because you know what they do? Anybody that's got anything in their past, when talking about society not being sympathetic, they can take a current issue that's going on right now Go find something that this man did 10 or 20 years ago, and this is who he is. Don't listen to him. People will take one thing, and it can be as old as Moses, okay, and overlook everything that you're doing right. That is, I'm telling you, that is how they view this movement. You could have 300 parents go testify on shared parenting or what's going on in family court. One person gets up there that doesn't know how to control their emotions or doesn't know how to exactly convey it. And it seems like they were the only testimony that day because they need something. We got to make sure that that something is no longer there. I don't think there's anybody here that is claiming to be a perfect person, perfect father. I did nothing wrong. I see that sometimes. There is not a single one of us that hasn't done something wrong. And the more that you can admit that, the better of a father, the better of a person that you can get. But they're going to find that wrong. So the best thing that you can do is address it yourself. And you cut it off at the corner before it even gets there. Yes, I've had my faults. Yes, I've had my mistakes. But I'm talking about here and now. This is what I'm doing right now. Keep with me currently in this discussion. The reason they talk about your past is because they are afraid of your present. But it is games and it's deflection. And it's very well organized opposition, guys. Yep. I would love to see, one of the things that's brought up all the time is like the Million Man marches. Give me a second to get some more coffee. Million Man March, Million Dad March. Eric, why won't you get behind these rallies? Because I know most of those guys are probably going to be at work that day and they can't show up. We might not be able to organize in person. Maybe one day, hopefully. Once we start getting some attention and awareness out there, I think it can happen. But until then, we can show up here and we can show up where it's needed and we can help each other. Every person doing a little bit goes a long way. And I want to keep having more of these conversations with you guys. It might seem old, it might seem repetitive, but somebody's got to do it. And I'm glad to be dad. I don't know about you guys. Let's see it down there. Are you glad to be dad? Even with the struggles and trials that you're facing right now. I'm sure if somebody asked you what your proudest moment in this life would be, the day you became dad is probably going to be very close to the top, if not the top of that list. And then one in the, what rhymes with glad is sad. What is one of the saddest moments? The moment that was taken away from you because you were a father. Many of us, why do we speak about it? Why do we stress the importance of dads? Many of us are sitting in the seats that we are. We are sitting here watching this broadcast. We are talking about the things that we are talking about just because we were fathers. We had no rights, none. And if you're not prepared to go into family court right away, you don't have the money. That's held against you as well. It's there to force you into it as quick as possible. And then it's set up to make sure we maximize. First thing I want to know, how much money do you have in your bank account? Let me go and discover. Let me see what all you've spent your money on. Because this is money you could have been given over here. Because some of that comes to the state, right? But once we know how much you got, we know how far that we can push this. And a lot of these attorneys, what they'll do, they'll promise you the moon and the stars and keep getting you to fight. And once they know that that banking account is almost drained, that they got this list from, bruh, you need to settle. You're not going to get much more. Nah, they got you. You just need to settle. Crooked, spineless worms, man. I see it all the time. I could go on about this all night long. I'm going to be back later on this week. I had announced it on Wednesday, but this Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be joined with Greg Ellis. He was an actor in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was on Star Trek, many other things. He wrote the book, The Respondent, foreword by Johnny Depp and Alec Baldwin. He's been on lots of media, even with Dr. Jordan Peterson talking about these issues. He is really fired up, really great guy, very good representative of the movement, knows how to present himself well, and I'd like to consider him a friend. He is trying to kick off a docu-series right now, which he'll need your help. I would ask every single one of you to be here. Make sure that you're sharing that broadcast out. And if he says he needs help, please give him help, because he does have the connections. He does know the people to get this out there to. And again, very well spoken, well intentions, man. And from what I hear, I haven't had the downtime to sit down and read his book yet. But for those that have, they've told me, Eric, like, man, he went through a nightmare. But and for any of you dads, I know a lot of us dads are video gamers. I think he's done quite an extensive list of the voices on video games as one of the voice actors. So I'll end up asking him a little bit about that. But that'll be this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And just stay tuned if this roundtable that we was invited to in D.C., and from what I'm here, there's going to be a pretty heavy media presence there to discuss the fatherless issue, and we should be allowed to stream it for you guys, for you to see. I want our people to show up and show them how many of us are wanting to see change in the system, how many there are that will actually tune in. Because that's what it's about at the end of the day. If we can find a way to give people ratings, and if we can find a way to sell commercials, we'll get time, right? It's the downside of it. That's the truth of it. But there is a lot of us that wants that to get out there. And I know that we can show up. I mean, there's been talk shows, man, that I watched that when we get on there and talk about these issues, we blow their numbers out of the water. We'll be one of their highest rated episodes because somebody hears, oh, he's talking about divorce? I've been through that. And they start commenting in. Everybody knows somebody that's been through it if they haven't been through it themselves. They have a family member, a friend, or somebody that's affected by it. That curse gets passed down to the next generation. And that's what we are right now. We are parents that are trying to stop this from reaching the next generation, our offspring. Even though we're fighting for them right now, we're fighting for the rights, we're also fighting to make sure they do not have to face this as well. We're also fighting for the right to be able to do what we do as parents, to be able to teach them values, to be able to teach them discipline, like we've got from our family. Right now, the fatherless issue with all of these different consequences, I mean, you think you got this other party that tells them everything dad's telling you is wrong. That discipline right now, he's being controlling and he's being abusive. You don't have to listen to that. You want to stay up late. You want all the social media. You want to have sex. You want whatever it is you want to do. He's wrong for telling you about that. And what does it do? It completely strips you out of any respect that your children have for you. And now these kids are not only without a father, they're without those lessons from that father. Even if they're getting them, they're not comprehending it because children are going to go after what tickles their ear. Kind of like what Andy Griffith was talking about. When a kid hears about this, there's so much glitter that they can't understand the choice that they're about to make until it's already got them hooked. They find out there's a hook in their mouth. We've got to fight for that too, guys, because those kids without that discipline, without the consequences, and right now, that's the reason family court is the way it is right now. Somebody can make an allegation against you. They can say anything they want to right now, and they have no consequence. There is no adverse reaction for making up lies or making up allegations that can completely destroy your life. And you'll wonder why it's so rampant. And then we've got other laws that come in here that want to claim that parental alienation is not true, that you can't use experts. Basically, that if the allegation is made, it is true, which they kind of look at that like that already, right? But no, it's going to establish this even further. Guys, we're in very important times right now. We are treading very, very dangerous waters. Look it up, Kayden, Kayden's Law. And for the mom who had to lose a child like this, I cannot sympathize with you enough. I can't imagine what it's like losing a child, but I rest assured, there's many dads that are going through the same situations. I've seen it. We've been there. We've talked to them. And it's going on just as much. custody exchange shootings, there's a lot of moms that are getting taken out too, guys. It is a very close ordeal. But I think, again, all of that stems from the family court. They put in those seeds of division. And over the years, it gets watered and it just gets worse and worse. And I know there are cases where there isn't conflict. Out of that survey, 2 out of every 3 people that have been through family court and child custody issues experience conflict. Only 1/3 said they didn't. 33% said high conflict. 33% said some conflict. It was only 1/3 that said they did it peacefully. And we know why. We know why. I think that mom and dad could probably do this better on their own, but there's nobody out there trying. There is a guy that we're supposed to talk to very soon. I know there was a bill that was going through that was like mandatory mediation. Try to come to an agreement without going to the court and make it as equal as possible. That was something he was wanting to get through office. There is some outside of the box ideas that are being thrown now that I think is amazing. Even there's another one, incentives, like a bonus every year that you actually stay married to your spouse and you wait to have kids until after you're married. They're talking about rewarding families that stay together. Imagine that. That sounds like a bill that promotes the nuclear family. Of course, there's going to be people that's like, well, what about this? What about this? And that's why we get together and talk to people. But to hear that it's being promoted and that there are ideas out here, I tell you this. How many of you knew that those bills were out there right now? That somebody was even trying to push that? You're not going to hear about it. Why? It's not sexy. Maybe I need to start getting like supermodels to stand in the background. Maybe that'd be sexy enough for them. Tell you what, man, modern society, it makes my butt itch. Guys, man, love you so much. Again, please make sure I'll be on later this week. Like, subscribe, make sure you're sharing this out there. Tag somebody that you know down in the comments. To everybody on our Patreon that supports us and helps us with this podcast, I cannot thank you enough. We need more. But thank you so much for helping us. And for everybody that continues to show up, your voice matters. And every time you help us get this message out there, it's spreading more awareness. Again, like I said, it's happening, but the dangerous things that are going on behind the scenes, it needs to be much more of a conversation right now. I'll give you guys some more updates a little bit later on this week, but until then, I am Eric Carroll. This is Dad Talk Today. Stay cool, stay dad. I was trying to find out a tagline when we very first started Dad Talk, and I thought about that. A lot of guys just feel like giving up. A lot of them end up committing suicide. And it's like, stay dad, man. Stay dad. Dad's going to stay in there even when it's hard. He's going to show his kids that he's not going to give up, no matter how bad it gets. So make sure you stay dad. Make sure you get out there, enjoy your life, take breaks. Don't let this weigh you down too much. We'll be back later on this week, and I hope to see you then. Hey, everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/dadtalktoday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being